Today's episode narrates the ill-fated camping trips of two adventurous friends, Alex and Chris, in the mysterious Whispering Woods. Determined to debunk a local legend of a cursed forest, the duo faces unexpected horrors as they encounter supernatural occurrences on the night of a supposed full moon. The legend speaks of a banished witch, Delana, and her quest for a lost lover, transforming anyone who enters the woods during the full moon into whispering shadows. A young Alex, 17, was riding his bike in the night. My friend Chris had just gotten back from summer camp. He and I were supposed to meet at his house before going on a camping trip. We had promised each other we would go camping once he got back. It had always been a dream of ours since we were kids to go camping together in our town's forest, since we were never allowed to go there as kids. A visual display of a forest in close-up and eerie darkness. Subtle sounds of rustling leaves and distant whispers. Our town's forest is known for its popular legend. It was said that the forest was cursed by a witch called Delana. She was banned by the town heads into the woods for being homosexual. She and her lover planned on leaving the town on the night of the full moon. They were caught by one of the locals who reported them to the town heads. The town heads had successfully killed a lover where they had agreed to meet before banishing her into the woods. Every full moon, she would come out of the trees, crying and wandering about the woods in search of her lover, and anyone who encountered the woods during that time would be turned into a whispering shadow with the task of finding a long-lost lover. While most people had believed the said rumor, others, especially Chris, had made it their life's work to prove that it was just a lie the locals had spread to stop people from stealing their crops years ago. My parents had warned me as a kid to never go to forest. My mom had begged my dad to move us out of the town because she found ours very mysterious. However, my dad couldn't afford the cost of housing in the city. When I arrived at Chris's house, he was already sitting at his lawn, waiting for me. "Dude, what's up? Why did it take you so long to get here?" he asked. "Bro, what do you mean?" I responded. "Not everyone has a car, plus I had to stop by Brandon's to get some supplies." "What do you mean by supplies? What did you get?" "I told you I had everything covered for this trip. Flashlights, my water bottle, the town's map in case we get lost, binoculars for hunting, a saw for chopping any wildlife we kill, and of course, pepper spray for any lousy spirit." Show a bag of tools. "Wait, what do you mean by any lousy spirits? And no, we're not killing any fucking animal. You know I'm vegan. We're only going on this trip to prove to our parents and this ridiculous town that there is nothing like a fucking spirit, and here you are bringing war gadgets. Plus it's just one night. Can't you starve? Must you eat all the time?" "Shut up, dude. You know camping is all about wildlife. And since when did you become vegan? You love to follow trends. That's ridiculous. You're the one who is ridiculous to bring all this stuff with you. We're spending the night, and that's it. Plus, if there were actual spirits, do you think your stupid pepper spray would do anything to them? I can't believe you. Don't you think if there were spirits in the woods, they would have invaded our homes by now?" Chris was right. I mean, if I were some spirit, I sure wouldn't have stayed in the woods forever. Besides, never in my town had anyone complained of spirits invading their space. Chris and I began our little adventure. We drove miles till we got to the end of the road where he parked his car. We began hiking for hours until we found a good spot to lay our tent and supplies. While settling down and getting ready for the night, a thought came to my head. "Yo, there's no full moon today." "Bro, I told you, it will happen today. The moon has moved its complete circle of 180 degrees. Plus, my astrology map already confirmed it," Chris said. He had really changed during summer camp, I thought. "What did they teach you in summer camp?" I asked. "I can't believe you're talking astrology and you're a vegan all of a sudden. Did they perform some lobotomy on you? I swear you've changed a lot in these few months." "Dude, it's not my summer camp. That place was a wreck. All I did was spend my days preparing for this moment. Don't you think it's weird that our parents had to ship us to different summer camps just to experience nature? something we have here in our town. I mean, if they were so scared about the woods, why didn't they just leave this town? And yet again, it was right. If our parents were so scared about the town's forest, why didn't they just leave? I mean, I know my father couldn't leave because of the whole money situation, but Chris's parents were different. They had the funds. We finished setting up the place, took some photos, then Chris began to set up his camera. Yo, what are you doing? I asked. I'm vlogging. Do you think I'd not document this? Hell no! Haven't you heard the phrase, if you can't show it, then it didn't happen? The sun setting and the wind blowing the trees off. Okay, do whatever. I examined the whole area because the sun was about to set in and I needed everything in place before nightfall. Well, I guess we're good to go. All we need now is the almighty presence of the moon, I said with excitement as I looked at the rise of dawn. Chris giggled. His laughter felt like an adventure. I went back to our tent to rest because I was a little tired. Suddenly, the forest felt so heavy and the ground became sticky. Chris, on the other hand, was pacing back and forth with his phone pointed to the sky. The moon had started to beam out, except it wasn't a full moon. I don't get it. Why is the moon so small? Now no one will believe me when I say there's no spirit. What's the point? What am I saying? We need to leave. I'm canceling my subscription right now. I don't believe I paid $14.99 for this. Chris kept lamenting. He went over to the tent and started packing his backpack. The forest felt so strange and for a second, I felt froze. Dude, why are you standing like one of these trees? Chris asked me to pack his bag. I feel weird, Chris, I responded. I don't think I can move. What do you mean you can't move? Get your ass over here. We need to leave this place before it gets too dark. Chris moved to me and tried to drag me close to the tent when he heard a loud cry. It felt so distant, yet close. The trees started to rustle and move in the same strange bent direction as though its branches were about to snap. What was that we just heard? The scream felt closer. Chris and I rushed to our tent and I took out my pepper spray in confusion. What are you going to do with this? He asked as he pulled out my saw. I could hear the fear in his voice. The cry grew louder and louder, then we heard it moving past us. We both peeped from outside our tent but found nothing. We got out and saw the largest mother of crows we had ever seen in my entire life. It was a stampede of crows in the sky, like they were running from something. We stood in silence until one of the crows fell on Chris's head before hitting the ground. We screamed at the sight of it, but for some reason, we didn't move. The crow laid there on the ground, struggling to get up. While we stood there in our frozen state, watching it fight for its life. The crows were almost gone when we heard the cry again. This time, it sounded like a siren, and I could feel my hearing sense vibrate. Goosebumps rose in my skin. This is so fucked up. Chris said, This is so fucked up. Chris said, sounding so dizzy. I turned to him and I spotted something gushing from his nostrils. I took my hand to my face and felt the wetness. What's on your nose, Chris? I asked and immediately took his hand to his face. We heard the scream again, but louder this time, and we both ran to the tent. I looked over at Chris again. This time, I turned on my flashlight to see that his nose was bleeding. Chris, your nose! I exclaimed. Oh my God, I'm bleeding! What the fuck? He said. Oh my God, is it your allergies? I asked in confusion. I don't think so. They don't make me bleed through my nostrils, he said as we cleaned up his nose. Chris had a severe allergy as a kid. Exposure to dirt made his eyes watery or itchy. Worst case scenario, he would sneeze for hours but not bleed. Do you feel dizzy? I asked in concern while covering both of his ears. He touched his nose with his finger, looked at it, and noticed it was bleeding heavily. It was like he turned on a switch in him. He held his ears as though a loud noise was disturbing it. Then he put on the saw, tore the tent, and off into the woods. I screamed his name and tried running after him, but I lost him. I went back to the tent to get my backpack, but I didn't see any of our things. It was like we were never there. I walked back to the direction Chris ran to and started calling out his name, but there was no response. I noticed this was a lost journey and turned back to go back to our spot to wait it out when a hand gripped my wrist and another hand stabbed and torn a whole section of my lap. I screamed and fell to the floor. Then I stood up immediately and ran without looking back, but I was losing a lot of blood and could barely walk. I started feeling dizzy and eventually fainted. The sun coming up. On waking up, I found myself in the same spot with no sign of Chris or any of our stuff. I gathered strength, stood up, and walked to the highway to find any car kind enough to take me to the hospital. A team went in search of Chris the next day, but never got any trace of him. To this day, Chris is missing, and I have a huge scar to remind me of the adventure we should never have ventured on.